In a monastery forgotten by time, an ancient scroll was found. It bore encoded words nearly illegible, but when deciphered, one phrase stood out: "The saint shall fall in May," as it was written in the tongue of fire. The strange thing is, a pope died exactly as the text foretold. Coincidence, prophecy, or something that was never meant to be read? In 1972, during an emergency restoration at the Abbey of Monte Cassino, one of the oldest monasteries in Europe, a group of monks discovered a sealed room. The entrance was covered with stones and bore signs that no one had touched it for centuries. Among corroded candelabras and books overtaken by mold, they found a small iron chest sealed with Christian symbols and geometric designs uncommon for the time. Inside, wrapped with extreme care in thick linen cloth, was a scroll. The material was fragile, almost crumbling at the touch. Handwritten, the text blended classical Latin with incomprehensible symbols, a language even the most experienced monks could not identify. At the bottom, one sentence was underlined in red ink: "The pontiff shall fall in fire on the holy day." They didn't know it yet, but they had just uncovered a warning that would alter the course of faith, one that would only make sense nearly a decade later. After the discovery, the scroll was discreetly sent to a group of cryptographers connected to a Catholic institute in Switzerland. For weeks, the specialists tried to decipher the patterns until they noticed something that had gone unnoticed. The words appeared to form a mathematical sequence. Repeated letters followed a logic. Some paragraphs only made sense when read backward. Others only became coherent when certain vowels were removed. Amid the linguistic chaos, a symbolic structure emerged, similar to those used by 13th century alchemists. One of the most unsettling passages, when fully deciphered, read, "When the sound of the bell echoes in May, and the throne is full, the blood of peace shall be spilled in the light of the world." The code made direct reference to May, to a religious leader, and to the idea of a symbolic and public death. The decoding team suggested that this was no ordinary prophecy, but rather a ritualistic warning, meant to be understood only by those with eyes to see. The phrase about the pontiff falling in fire began to carry more weight, but the church remained silent, and time passed. Nearly a decade after the scroll's discovery, the world was shaken by a shocking event. On May 13, 1981, Pope John Paul II was struck by 2 bullets in St. Peter's Square, right in the heart of the Vatican. It was the anniversary of the apparition of Fatima, a holy day for millions of Catholics. The location, one of the most sacred centers of faith. The moment, a public celebration amidst applause and prayers. The attack, in broad daylight, with gunfire on a fire, aimed at the holiest man in the church. Researchers who knew about the scroll were the first to notice the chilling resemblance. The fall of the pontiff on a holy day, foretold in the ancient text, had come true with disturbing precision. The coincidence was so exact that theologians and scholars began to wonder, was this just a tragedy, or did someone or something already know it would happen? And more importantly, what else did the scroll say that has yet to come to light? A few days after the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II, something strange happened behind the scenes at the Vatican. The scroll, which had been under analysis by a discreet team of scholars, suddenly disappeared. Internal sources claim that men dressed in ceremonial robes entered the institute in Geneva during the early hours of the morning. They presented no documents. They simply said, "This text must return to the silence from which it came." Since then, the original scroll has never been seen again. Officially, the Church has denied its existence, but anonymous records suggest it was sealed within a chamber of the Vatican's secret archives, a restricted area accessible to only a select few cardinals. Copies of the text began to surface in obscure forums, some emerging from the deep web. But they were always incomplete, always missing passages. Some say those hidden sections contain other prophecies, even more disturbing. Prophecies the world is not yet ready to face. And so, like a dark cycle repeating itself, the scroll returned to the shadows. But one question still echoes: why hide something if there was nothing to fear? The scroll was signed with 3 enigmatic letters, SRI, no full name, no precise date, only those initials. For years, scholars tried to uncover the identity of the original author. One theory gained traction among religious historians. SRI could stand for Servus Rationis Infernalis, or in free translation, Servant of Infernal Reason, a symbolic signature, a title assumed by a renegade monk, or something darker, perhaps connected to hidden orders within the church itself. In forgotten archives from the 13th century, the name of a secluded monk was found, Sebastianus Remus. Ignatius, who was reportedly expelled from his abbey after claiming to have apocalyptic visions. According to records from the time, he spent 21 days in complete silence, locked in a dark room, consuming only water. When he emerged, he wrote a single sentence, "The light will turn to grey, and those who live by faith shall fall." Shortly after, he vanished. No record of his death, burial, or escape. Nothing. If he was the author of the scroll, it would mean that someone had access to disturbing visions centuries before any technology, scientific forecast, or historical event. Visions that still echo, and that, perhaps, are yet to come. It was only after the 1981 assassination attempt that scholars began to re-examine history with new eyes. The contents of the scroll, now hidden, seemed to describe not just a single event, but a hidden pattern. Diving into papal records, some analysts noticed that several popes had died on dates tied to specific liturgical celebrations under unusual circumstances. Pope John IX, found dead after a scandal on a night of festivity. Pope Clement II, poisoned during a supposed ritual. Pope Pius VI, who prophesied his own death during the siege of Rome, and died exactly as he had foretold. Each death, when mapped onto a symbolic timeline, followed the cycle of Christian feast days and aligned with astrological symbols used by ancient Gnostic Christian sects. What once seemed like coincidence was now forming into a dark code. And the most chilling question emerged: what if these deaths weren't accidental, but part of a ritual that repeats itself? The most feared hypothesis is that the scroll is, in fact, an internal record of this cycle, a kind of black book of the faith itself, locked away beyond reach. And what if it was written by someone or something that knew exactly when and how the next would fall? In 1998, a Jesuit priest named Matteo Lombardi broke the silence. He claimed to have had access to a partial copy of the scroll given to him by a dying monk hidden in the Italian Alps. According to Lombardi, the document was not just a prophecy, but a manual of control, secretly used by an order within the Vatican. He reported that after months of study, he began receiving veiled threats, unsigned messages, shadows in the hallways, figures lurking inside the church itself. In an interview with the local press, he stated, "If I disappear, the world must know what they call faith has a side that feeds on darkness." 1 week later, Lombardi was found dead in his room, under circumstances the police classified as a heart attack. But the most chilling detail? On his desk lay a single handwritten note, in the same handwriting as the original scroll. Who reads the lines of fire signs his own end. The Vatican never commented on the case, and the copy of the scroll vanished. Since then, Lombardi's name has become a whisper among those who dare to investigate the secret archives. A modern martyr? Or just another piece and quietly removed from the game? After the Lombardi case, some lost fragments of the scroll began to resurface in closed forums on the deep web. Among them, one piece stood out as even more disturbing. It spoke of a shepherd dressed in white who will walk among ruins and fall in flames before crowds without faith. The fragment mentions the month of April, followed by the chilling phrase, "When the birds fly silently over the square, it will be the end of the dome." The most unsettling part? The description doesn't seem to refer to the past, but to something yet to come. The text suggests that the next pope, or perhaps the current one, will face a public, tragic, and ritualized fate during a global event. The imagery is symbolic, but filled with elements that echo recent developments. Crises of faith, protests against the church, tensions within the Vatican itself, Some even believe the text isn't a prophecy at all, but a ritual instruction, something meant to be followed by a hidden elite, to the letter. An investigative journalist who attempted to publish these fragments suffered a suspicious accident. The file he had encrypted was erased from the server without a trace, and so the prophecy lives on, waiting. Perhaps the next pope is already marked. Perhaps the clock is already ticking. The most disturbing of all mysteries is not in the past, it is happening now. Since 2023, strange phenomena have begun to appear around the Vatican and in historic cathedrals around the world. Statues of saints crying blood, captured on video. Worshippers reporting strange frequencies during Mass, causing nausea and fainting. Birds flying in circles over St. Peter's Square, in complete silence, exactly as described in the scroll. Experts try to explain. The Church remains silent. But those who have read the fragments know these are the signs. The prophecy speaks of a split moon reflected in stained glass, and in 2024, a partial eclipse crossed over Europe on Palm Sunday, casting a cross-shaped shadow over the Vatican. Coincidence or alignment? Security cameras in the Apostolic Archive captured a hooded figure entering at midnight. No one could say who it was or how they got in. As they passed, a single phrase was written in charcoal on the marble floor. It is closer than they think. The signs are not coming, they have already begun. After so many signs, strange deaths, disappearances, codes and silences, a question arises, one no one dares to say out loud. What if the scroll isn't a prophecy, but a sentence? A warning not written to predict the future, but to determine it. The scroll may be part of a dark cycle within the very structure of the Church. A pact, a ritual, nun a secret, passed down through the centuries, hidden in plain sight. When a pope is elected, he receives 2 rings. One is destroyed at the end of his papacy, but the other? What if that ring symbolizes the silent acceptance of the sentence? What if the newly elected unknowingly already bears the weight of his own fall? The Vatican has never confirmed, never denied. It simply remains silent. What we know is this: every letter of the scroll has come to pass, so far. And the final line reads, "When the world cries out for peace and faith seems unanimous, the white throne shall fall, and the eyes that remain will see the truth, too late." The truth may already be written, and perhaps nothing can stop it. If you've made it this far, maybe you're seeing the signs too. This video could disappear just like other records before it. Turn on the bell because the next content might reveal what history has tried to hide. Comment below. Do you believe we're living the final chapters of this prophecy? Or is it all part of a narrative built to control us? Share this video before silence takes over.